bad faith? The police theory and the cause of death for our daughter, our beautiful daughter Annie, is that she killed herself by drinking Bactine, which contains a poison, lidocaine. That's a very narrow, very specific theory in a manner of suicide never, ever attempted or conducted in the history of mankind. But that's their theory, and they're sticking to it. And to support it, they claimed that they'd contacted the makers of Bactine, who had told them that yes, in fact, drinking Bactine would kill someone. That's a lie. We have in writing from the makers of Bactine that they never told the Baltimore police any such thing. And furthermore, they add, if you drank the full contents, 5 fluid ounces of a Bactine container, it would not likely cause death. So they said exactly the opposite of what the police told the Washington Post in 2009, which was they'd contacted the makers and the makers had confirmed it causes death. That's a lie to support it's a very specific lie to support a very specific, unprecedented, and wrong-headed theory as to the cause of Annie's death. There's a foundational act of bad faith, honey.
Also, Annie's fingerprints were never taken. There are no fingerprints on that bottle of Bactine. I persuaded Annie, because she truly was 16, to get her ears pierced that summer in August. I used that Bactine every day. I sprayed Annie's ears 3 times a day. I used it myself because I wanted to try to make sure to see if it was okay. So from August to October, that bottle was not even full. Why are my fingerprints not on that bottle of Bactine? Why were Annie's fingerprints not taken? How about the second one?
Well, so they lied. They lied about her fingerprints, okay? So that's an act of bad faith. Here's another act of bad faith. We pressed them to arrest the thugs who our private investigators had tracked down using actual photographs of Annie and talking to witnesses in Baltimore. They tracked down the persons involved, the persons who had taken our car, found Annie in it, dumped her, dead or dying, behind a dumpster. A year later, the police still hadn't done anything about it. We were anxious that whatever justice we could seek, whatever meager justice we could find, be applied. We pressed the police to press charges for car theft. Their explanation to the press on why they hadn't pressed charges for car theft against these thugs was that perhaps Annie had given them permission to use the car. Now, the thugs didn't even try that. That's such a lame excuse. They'd already admitted to stealing the car. They'd already admitted to dumping her body. The police are just scrambling to cover their rear ends. They're desperate. They're making up alibis for thugs. Now, cops don't usually do that. Cops are not inclined to cover up for young men who've admitted to stealing a car and dumping a dead or dying girl behind a dumpster. But they're so desperate at the highest levels of the justice system in Baltimore to cover up their lack of investigation into this girl's death, they just make up anything. Sure, they'll make up alibis that the thugs didn't even consider using because it's so ridiculous.
And we had to press charges ourselves. And Dan had to go down. And then they fought us on that. And then finally they said, okay, we will. It was like the last day. And there was one boy, Darnell Kinlaw, who is on trial now for killing another girl. And they dropped his charges. The state's attorney didn't do it.
This is one of the thugs that our private investigators had tracked down and implicated in the theft of our car, in the murder or body dumping of our daughter. And the police, in fact, did arrest Darnell Kinlaw for stealing our car. And at the last minute, at the 11th hour, the state's attorney dropped charges.
We went to court.
Now, if the state's attorney had pressed charges in that matter, then Darnell Kinlaw would have been in jail. Lakeisha Player, a beautiful young woman with 2 children, would still be alive. Instead, they dropped the charges. Kinlaw's still out and about in the community, and he kills Lakeisha Player less than a year ago. He shoots her and steals her car. And the police tell us, well, there's no connection.
Mrs. McCann, Do you know one good thing that came out of Annie's death? And this would destroy any parent. Do you know they got their GED? That was their punishment. My daughter didn't get a chance to finish high school. She didn't go to her prom. She didn't get to finish or do anything. But these thugs got to finish their GED, and I should be grateful.
That's our silver lining in the cloud of Annie's death.
And then another label of what we were talking about with the police. Our private investigator found someone who identified a girl who was seen with Annie in Baltimore at a restaurant in Vacaros, and had actually identified more than once in Vacaros, and also that same person was identified in Costco in Virginia. And do you know that we couldn't get the police?
What we did is, so our private investigators find a powerful eyewitness too, at Vacaro's pastry shop in Little Italy. This is again using an actual photograph of Annie and expanding from where Annie's body was found, and our lead detective saying to us, "Well, you say she loves sweets, and maybe she went to Vacaro's pastry shop. You don't? No, we don't. I'm going to check it out." This is 4 months after Annie's death. He's taking a picture around, and they, two people at Vacaro's, 2 employees, recognize it right away. Yeah, I recognize her. And she was here. I think it was around Halloween. That's exactly when it was. So the one young man is saying, I remember her. I think it was around Halloween. Young woman who worked there comes over to see what's going on. What's this guy talking to my fellow employee about? And she says, oh, it's her. She remembered Annie, she said, because Annie was so nice and lively and laughing a lot. The young man said he remembered her because she was so pretty and remembers all the pretty girls. The reason I know that is I was shocked that we'd gotten eyewitnesses 4 months after the fact, very strong eyewitnesses. And the young woman remembered in great detail. She remembered exactly where Annie sat. She remembered who she was with. She gave a great description. So what we did is we said, we got a great description, we got a great witness, let's do a sketch. Twice, the Baltimore Police Department knocked our legs out from under us when we were closing in on a sketch artist. And you know what? When we finally got a sketch artist, we went further afield than Baltimore, so that wouldn't happen anymore. We got one of the best in the world. He did a great job. And as Mary Jane said, the sketch has been recognized in several places in Northern Virginia. And several months ago, it was a name was placed to it. For the first time, we had a name to go with it. This is new information that the police could act on. The sketch is very reliable.
And the person who did it was a retired homicide detective.
So it was the sketch was elicited in Baltimore. It's recognized widely, or at several locations in Northern Virginia. It's a good sketch. We have a name to go with it. When we report that to the press, Baltimore City Police Department says, "Oh, we don't think that's very credible because it was done by a psychic sketch artist." Now, that's pretty bad faith. They just made that up out of whole cloth. You can't accidentally say psychic sketch artist. You could say, oh, did I say 5, I meant 10. Did I say Baltimore, I meant Washington. Did I say green, I meant blue. You can't accidentally say psychic sketch artist. This was made up out of whole cloth to knock our legs out from under us, to discredit us in the public's eye. We'll be telling people for the next 5 years, no, it wasn't a psychic sketch artist.
No, but when the reporter went back and...
Well, they acknowledged it. They acknowledged it, but...
They said, oops, my bad. It was my mistake. I made a mistake. You don't make a mistake like that.
So, it's just an unending illustrations of bad faith. Here's one more. The lead detective, after our first press conference in Baltimore, the lead detective calls me up at work and says, "You did great, Dan. I couldn't tell you guys to do that, but you did just what I needed you to do with that press conference. Maybe now my bosses will give this case the attention it deserves." So I'm excited and engaged. Finally, Baltimore's police are in the game. The next day, he left us a voicemail that says practically the same thing. About a week later, we're in a meeting with the Baltimore City Police Department, his higher-ups, his bosses, who he thought were finally going to give the case the attention he said, the lead detective said it deserved. And they shut the case down in the ugliest manner possible, pounding the table, saying, "This case is closed." Absolutely closed minds to anything, including the lead detective's assertion that maybe, that he thought it deserved attention. Just
Yeah,
slammed
but
shut.
let me say that a little bit better.
Sure.
That you would not want to be treated like that. My daughter was treated like garbage. She was dumped in the garbage. And then when we went for the meeting to treat us victims like a piece of garbage, pounding the table, I thought the man would have a heart attack. He pounded so hard, his face was red, he looked like he drank for 3 months straight. That's how red his face was. And I really thought he was going to have a heart attack. And they just would not give in, and each one wagged their finger and just had no condolences for us at all.
And let me give a couple
banging on the table. I will never forget it because it was only Dan and myself, and they had.
We were the only ones without guns.
Yeah, and they were all in there, and I have just never ever felt like I felt like a criminal. We were criminals. And
Let me give a couple
my
other
daughter
examples
was
of bad
garbage.
faith on the investigation. Again, working through the press, bringing as much pressure as we could to bear. One person of interest in the investigation is someone with whom Annie exchanged texts, 2 texts. She sent, a minute later, she received a text. We didn't know it till after we got the worst news imaginable. We got all the phone records, we gave them to the police. We highlighted that particular number as one not known to us. They didn't do anything with it. Our private investigators traced it months later to a man in Gainesville, Virginia, with a long record of narcotics distribution and production, and with many relatives in Baltimore. So the police, but he won't talk to our private investigators, that won't surprise you. The police wouldn't talk to him, so we're pressing. Well, eventually they did talk to him. What they did a year after the fact is they called him up and said, "What about this phone number?" And he said, "Oh, that was a wrong number, a wrong number to my wife's phone." And they bought that. So that their investigation is to call a guy up, and then these are seasoned homicide detectives, including the head of homicide at the time. And the idea that they would accept that, I mean, who remembers a wrong number to his wife's phone by text a year after the fact? I mean, it's not. I doubt a wife would even say to a husband, "Oh, you won't believe what happened today. I got a wrong text." I mean, it's just maybe it's true, but it bears following up by the police. They just accepted it, hook, line, and sinker. That man needs to be investigated by real police officers. He won't talk to our private investigators.
It just makes me sick. Makes me want to throw up.